Today's message is head, heart, and holy tension. Wonder what that's about. Oh yeah, I wrote that, didn't I? Head, heart, and holy tension. You know, there is a lot that goes on in our minds to try to figure out the mechanics of things, the very linear aspect of how to do this, how to do that. And yet, have you ever struggled with, but your heart says something else? You ever been in a decision, a relationship, a workplace, whatever it is, and you're like, this is something I know I want to do, but gosh, this is this pull this other way, and there's this tension between. So that's really what the message will center on today. Because when we think of harmony, that often brings us to a lot of words like peace and ease and grace. And true harmony is really about honoring the differences. It really is about that, because we often, while we imagine simplicity and ease and fitting together perfectly, no friction, no struggle, but that's not really what harmony is. It's rarely that simple. It often comes with honoring those places within us that may be in some sort of a conflict or disagreement, head and heart. That's what the holy tension is about. But when we truly find ways that we can balance those two, we can truly find the unity within ourselves and within others, honoring the differences, the opinions, the words, the phrases. Maybe considering there might be something in there for me to learn about the person and maybe about myself. I'm going to begin this as a little bit of an illustration, so I'm going to need 2 volunteers, brave and courageous volunteers. And let me set it up first, so you know what you're doing. You're like, before I say yes. So I'm going to give you a word. It'll be kind of like charades. So the word that the person gets, you'll be guessing. So they'll have the extra work because they don't get to use any verbal cues. So who's the 2 volunteers that are going to join me today? Who feels like joining me? All right, this is that vulnerability opportunity. All right, Valerie. Okay, yours is going to be right here. What is your name again? Leslie? Okay. So you don't see each other's words.
Okay.
There's yours.
I'm acting this out.
You're going to act that out in one moment. This is yours, and when she's done, you're going to act yours out. But don't let them know, okay? Act it out, and y'all call it out, what you think she's working on. All right, Valerie, you're good at this. To them.
Oh,
They're, yeah.
everybody's guessing.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Got it. Yes. What do you say? Got it.
Transformation. Yeah, whoa. All right, that's good. Mark extra points there. You got it. Okay. All right, Leslie, here you go. Oh,
sorry.
wow. Wow. Nailed that.
You've seen a little conflict.
Yes, we have. Wow, that's really good. Wait, Leslie, come back. Valerie, come back. There's something that goes along with this. So y'all 2 stand here. So we've got transformation. We've got conflict.
I read into her.
And what you're witnessing today, they didn't even know this. We will forever wed in holy matrimony today. Conflict transformation. And so it is. Thank you. You know, that was really cool, because I was hoping, like, if this takes 37 minutes, there's a lot of talk coming up. But conflict transformation, we don't normally see those 2 as friends, do we? We see conflict as exactly where Leslie went, with this aggressiveness, this fight, right? Conflict, and transformation, and this beautiful thing, but they actually are such beautiful synonyms if you think about it. Because transformation happens with struggle. Transformation happens when the seed is below the earth and it's blooming, or the caterpillar in that phase of the cocoon and the goo. There is a conflict that happens to emerge something new with that transformation. Thank you both for participating in it. That was fun. I've done this before. I've done this before with some of my classes that I teach, and I tell you, we go on and on and on because they really work on it. Dr. King, as we honor Dr. Martin Luther King Day tomorrow, Dr. King said, there is tension at the heart of life. tension at the heart of life. He said that, strength of love, in 1963. Look around this ministry, this church right now. Look at the windows that you can see near you, the stained glass or the one behind me. And just notice them. Notice the beauty of them. We love them here, especially in the morning, but even at 6 p.m. when the sun's coming through. They're just fantastic. And when you look at a stained glass window, each piece comes together in such a beautiful fabric that's woven together. If you ever worked on stained glass or been around someone that does that, sometimes it's a table of glass, it's shards, it's pieces, it's colors. You may see a color that you like or a piece that draws your eye, but it doesn't look like much alone. But when fitted together, when creating the masterpiece that it is, it becomes this beautiful expression, especially as the light reveals itself through it. We see something beautiful as the whole. Something that was another metaphor like that was important to me was this growing up. Anyone remember these or have these? Did you have one as a child? What about cafeteria maybe? So my grandmother spent her life, really, more than 40 years as the janitor of a school and also the cafeteria lady. And so when they would retire these plates, when they would be scratched or dented or cracked, rather than throw them out, she wanted to take them home, so she took them home. So I grew up with this kind of plate. And I tell you what, it was one of my favorite. It's still, I'll go ahead and admit it, I would like to eat out of these in the future. I like that, but the thing about these plates is they keep everything separate. So you might think, well, what does separate have to do with wholeness? But the divided plate, each section has a purpose. It holds something different. Maybe it's the vegetable. Maybe it's a little dessert. Maybe it's some fruit. And together you get to savor each piece and notice each one. Without it, in my mind as a child, it would look like one plate of mush. I didn't want food touching. Anyone remember you didn't want your food to touch? Anyone go through that? Or is it just me? Is it just me? I still kind of like them not blended too close together. But you can savor them and notice them and experiment with them. And that's a child's curiosity to discover what is different. The colors, the flavors. At a time, I can remember my plate would often not be very green. And now today it's a very green plate because the broccolis and the cauliflowers and of course, cauliflower is white, but Brussels sprouts and asparagus. I mean, I wouldn't have any of it, and that's kind of my main staple now. But the plate keeps them separate, and we can explore them. And both metaphors, stained glass window pieces coming together as a whole, or a plate like this, allows each part to be honored, while then honoring the entire whole, what something looks like in unity. And yet, when our head and our heart or in this exploration of some decision, something in our lives, they don't always agree, do they? You've been tugged by one or the other before. I know you have, and may be doing that right now. And that's where the creative tension lies. There's a tension between the two. One pulls to reason, and then there's a desire. But then there's a safety, but then there's a possibility. And we're often tugged between those two. And it can feel like a conflict within us. You've been through those experiences where you're just torn between head and heart. The decision that you must make, the one you're maybe called to, but the one you know is safe and right and what you're supposed to do. But it can be the actual spark of new growth and new opportunity. I want to tell you a little story about this village, this home called Clarity. And Leah, a young woman, would often go home every day in the same way. And she would enter this forest. She loved walking through the forest, and the trees and sometimes the leaves under her feet would make crunching sounds, and sometimes see a rabbit or a squirrel, the light coming through the forest. She'd weave around through the forest and find her way all the way to her home at the village of Clarity. She knew this route, and she liked to step over the fallen trees and just explore. But she often looked at this crossroads before she entered on the way home, and there was this split where she could go through the forest as she always did. But she could also go to this wide open field that was right next to it. But she never went that way. There was no covering, there were no trees. It was just this wide open, beautiful pasture. But she knew on the other side and around the corner at the back of the woods was the village of Clarity, was home. So one day she stood at these crossroads, and she was in that moment of sweet vulnerability. And as she stood there, she was pulled into safety, security, something I know, the way I know, but there's this field of possibility. But there was an unknown, possibly some risk. Her head was saying, maybe, maybe not. But she decided to step forward in courage and say, I'm going to go through the field this time. And in that sweet vulnerability, she embraced this unknown, wide open field. And what she discovered was that clarity, the way home, didn't always come from certainty, but from the courage to take the next step. Does that make sense to you? I know you've done that at various times in your life. Brene Brown fans? She's one of my teachers, and she often says that that place of vulnerability within us is actually the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. The things that we've seen have been birthed in our society and our world came from those vulnerable moments where we try something new. It's what ministry is about, really. That's what faith-based communities are about. It's what experimentation, as you've seen with me as your senior minister, is about. It's what, let's put some music on the screens and celebrate lyrics on the screen and let's see what that looks like. How does that feel? We try things and we explore things and we see what may work, what may not. The story of Leah, the young woman that stepped into the forest that day and continuously her whole life that decided to go through the field, is about that kind of vulnerability. Uncertain sometimes, risky sometimes, but yet filled with some beautiful possibility. In embracing that tension between head and heart, we don't reject our minds or our hearts. That's not what it's about. We allow them to converse, to have the sweet conversation. And that's where Spirit may lead us to a new path. A path that we may not have been able to see if we didn't take that step, that next step with courage. We often hear a passage, biblical passage from Jesus that reveals a very powerful message, and I'll share that with you. Unless you change and become like little children, you will never inherit the kingdom of heaven. You heard that before? Let me see a show of hands that sounds really familiar. Whether you've been in church your whole life or a little bit, that one's pretty popular. So when we take a look at that, unless you change and become like little children, we often go to a child's faith, a child trust. A child may taste one meal at a time, one little piece of that divided plate, maybe spit out a little bit here and there. I know I did. You did too. But there's curiosity. There's discovery. When a child looks at a stained glass window, it doesn't necessarily go into the how pieces, but just, wow, the beauty, the colors, the blue, the red, the purples, the oranges, maybe name the colors. A child doesn't demand certainty, but celebrates the discovery. Now, when we look into the metaphorical or the metaphysical aspect of this, I love this part because I believe the words here from Jesus, to become like a little child, is not about age. It's about consciousness. It's about birthing something new. It's about the wisdom that comes as we expand. To become like a child is to return to that state of trust. Gosh, we start losing it when we get older, don't we? We start trusting less. And that's work for all of us, to begin trusting more. A place of openness, receptivity, free from fear, that ego tug, the need to control the outcome. How do you do with that one? The controlling the outcome is something we work on. It doesn't mean without structure. It doesn't mean without order. In fact, order is one of our 12 powers. Order is a really important part of our lives. The kingdom of heaven's quite different in that particular passage. So what's that one about? For me, it's always meant this, that it's not about waiting for the after party. It's about the now experience. It's an inner awareness that we begin awakening to. When we release those learned defenses that we begin to gather throughout our lives and remember the original wholeness that you are, the original blessing that you came into this world to be. we naturally enter that kingdom consciousness, or I'll also add the queendom consciousness, the expansion of who you are as a person. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1962 famously said, "Faith is taking that first step even when we don't see the whole staircase." You know that one. That's a powerful message. That really is what it's about in the spiritual journey. It's taking that next step. But I don't know the outcome. I don't know what's here. I don't know what's next. I don't know what's going to be, but I'm going to step fully in praise and celebration and gratitude in my heart, knowing that the best is yet to be. The good is rising up at every moment. We have a choice. We can see it another way too, can't we? So we choose. We choose in that moment. Imagine two opposing ideas within yourself. The desire for stability, safety. That's a need that we all need to have met. Stability, safety. But there's sometimes an urge for change. There's an urge to grow, to do something new and different. Do you see that in between that there's a great tension between those two things? It can be uncomfortable, but it can lead us to new insights. I like metaphors. I like object lessons. If I had one, I would show you, but you'll get it. A rubber band. Think about that. Pull it too tight, and what happens? Ouch. Done that before, right? Yeah. Pull it too tight, and it propels things. It could snap. But have you ever bound papers together and it's way too loose? It doesn't do the purpose. It doesn't do its job. But when it's balanced just right, it fulfills that purpose. Creative tension encourages exploration, questioning our inner world, the inner story. My hope is, and I think ministry and unity's hope is, that when you go to Sunday service, you get a snippet of maybe an exploration, a curiosity, something new to consider within ourselves. Ministry for me is about that. It's experimentation, it's trying, it's saying you're on a spiritual journey and so am I. And what if we dive in deep together and we go, I haven't thought of it that way. I'm going to explore something new today. It's a journey. And those boxes that we find ourselves put in, let's just do away with the box, right? Just let it go. Creative tension between the two, that holy tension that I'm talking about, is actually the fertile ground where innovation, growth, thrive. That's where it actually comes from. The holy tension is the harmony by honoring both our head and our heart. Not saying I'm going to lead more with one or the other, but balancing those two together. And that's where Spirit will bring forth the clarity that we're searching for. Not because we know the outcome, but because we're willing to take the step and trust. I've written several books, and every time I would do that, it would be an exploration of the voices within my head that would say, what if no one likes it? Is it's just for me? It is for me. But it's also an exercise in seeing what that may be like, especially with children's books, appealing to that audience. And I know one of our very own congregants, Vivian's here today. Vivian is just about to receive the first touch physical copy of the book she's been working on a very long time. And going through that experience, I know you're nodding because it's like, oh my gosh. And it's a vulnerability because people are going to see this, but you know that you know that you know in your heart. That's what you're called to do. Yet your head says, but how? And the stumbles and the bumbles and publishers and getting it printed and all this stuff that you go through. Oh my gosh, I know. But then you birth that baby and you release and you let it go. That's the message for all of us with anything we're exploring. The biggest question for you to take away is, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you open and receptive to that? I'm going to pause here for just a little bit of an exercise. So I want you to consider something that your head has been toying with. A decision, could be big, it could be simple, but just a decision that's there and it's telling you something. But there's something the same in your heart that's been telling you something too. And maybe they're a little opposed. Just imagine what that is. You can take this exercise home with you too at any time, but something your head is saying, yes, this is the way, but your heart's going, I don't know. And it sometimes is the other way around. Just pause for just a few seconds and consider what that maybe decision is. No solution, just pause and notice the two. Notice the opposing pieces, the tension right between those. And if something came to mind, carry that with you. And this exercise is not about solving it. It's not about a solution. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's celebrating the beauty of being able to hold both. Hold both at the same time. The reminder is that this tension or this conflict, as we saw Leslie and Valerie to illustrate this tension, this conflict transformation is really about seeing that in-between space that has such power in it. And it's not a sign that we're doing something wrong. It's a sign to know that you can be aware and notice that there's this space between that's held tight, and I'm going to balance both together, because I believe that right there, if we can pay attention and notice that, that could be the very place within us that is waking up. We don't go through life being led by one or the other, but we stop and we say, oh, there's this little creative space that's tugging right between the two. Notice it, because right there something birthing, something new will come alive within you. We're not asked to see the whole staircase, as Dr. King said, only to take the next step with a faithful balance. So let's honor each part of ourselves in this holy tension that rises. On your day-to-day life, your experiences, your journey, your spiritual journey, your career decisions, your relationship decisions, just notice and hold both. Because that's where Spirit weaves us together in all sorts of ways. And I want you to remember this, that you matter. And you hear me say that every Sunday, that you matter on this sacred journey. My journey, your journey, the journey of unity on Greenville, the journey, the wider journey of unity in the world, the wider journey of the consciousness that we are developing and co-creating with. You are a sacred part of this. Do you know that? You've heard me ask this before, but I want you to hear it. You are a sacred part of the journey, because what you're up to and I'm up to makes a difference in the collective. Would you agree? Yeah. And always remember, with a breath, you want to put your hands over your hearts? To remember the heart space, that you are loved. Wherever you may be, whatever you're navigating, know that you're loved. And if you need someone to remind you, just come find me and I'll tell you. Because not everybody gets to hear that every single day. And that's our job. That is our job, to love one another. And thank you for being a part of this journey, at this community, at this moment, at this time, because baby, it's cold outside. And coming out this morning, because it would be real easy to stay snuggled in, wouldn't it? But thank you, because this moment, every moment, as in Pentatonic's song, every moment's a season, every moment, every second, we're co-contributing to the greater good, and you're a part of it. So thank you for coming out and being part of this journey. We love you.